Hello everybody, welcome back to the stream. It's me, Digi. We are on Friday, February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. I'm going to be doing a little bit of trucking to start the stream, and depending on whether or not I do one or two runs, I also will probably do some scenery development later. So feel free to grab a chair, something warm or cold to drink, and let's go check out Japan again. I have been playing this once a night to build up the necessary funds so that our trucking hero Tanaka Hirosaki can own his own truck and start his own company. Now, technically Tanaka already has started a company, but the issue here is that I don't have enough funds to buy my own truck, so that I need to actually get them. I have like 5.4 million yen, but so far I've only seen used truck sales go as cheap as like 10 or 11 million yen for my own truck. So clearly I need to make a lot more money before that happens. But I mean, at this rate, I'll probably have the funds in a couple of weeks, I think. So I'm enjoying quick jobs to make some money. And usually the sweet spot for me is somewhere in the middle here in terms of mileage and payouts. If you pay careful enough attention, you can maximize your payout by going with routes where you get the most for every kilometer. I also try to find jobs where I can drive a truck that I like. The MAN trucks have a very nice horn, which if I find a good job, I can demonstrate. That's the truck I want, but the route isn't representative of a good payout for me. So let's see if I can find something else. Okay, so I think we're going to be going from, Osaka to Kobe. This is actually a good route. We're going to be taking some frozen hake to just outside of Osaka. And it's not that's a pretty good payout for mileage. It'll get me a little bit closer to 6 million yen. Also looks like an evening run. Here is the truck I'm driving. Ooh, okay. Not bad. Yep, I'm taking refrigerated goods. Not bad. Alright. Got my map set. And let's get my supplemental views just in case I'm not looking in a certain direction. Let's get going. Good afternoon, or good evening, or happy Saturday morning to you, depending on what corner of the world you call home. We are in Euro Truck Simulator 2, and right now I am in the add-on or the map mod called Project Japan. I have been deep into this ecosystem since probably about 2.5 going on 3 weeks ago, when the very patient Project Japan staff helped me figure out what was going on that kept me from being able to install this so that I could actually enjoy it. I learned a few things in the days and weeks since I initially installed the map mod. Number one, there's a reason why driving in virtual Japan feels like it takes longer than in the standard map in Europe. The standard map is 119 scale. That means, I guess, if I understand this correctly, it's compressed 19 times, or 1 mile or 1 kilometer in Europe is 19 in the real life equivalent. So in Project Japan, the scale is 110, which means 1 kilometer in Japan represents 10 kilometers in the real world equivalent. Now, take that as you wish, and I'm probably wrong in my assumption or my determination of how that works, but basically what that means is it takes longer naturally to get cargo delivered because the map, even though the island of Japan or the many islands of Japan are not as spacious as, say, Europe, there's more actual distance to drive for every job you commit to, which essentially means you are going to be spending more time behind the wheel by default because it's naturally going to take longer. Which is both kind of challenging and also kind of fun because you will likely see a little bit more detail in certain areas, especially if any of you are using the Project Japan map mod and you happen to call Japan home, or you've visited enough times to be able to pick out certain landmarks or predominant places more easily. I have never visited Japan, but through my affinity for racing games on consoles and on the computer, like Assetto Corsa and the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, I'm a little bit familiar with the Bayside Road highway system and the Tokyo Expressway system as a whole. And that system spans many neighborhoods, many cities, dozens of kilometers, if not hundreds. And while I don't recognize every single aspect of it, and again, there would probably be many people that could probably put my knowledge to flight, it's kind of nice to see a little bit more detail out here, on top of also getting a different perspective, because when I'm, hurtling down the highway at rates of speed that would naturally get me thrown in prison, because it's a simulator and you can have fun on roads because you're not driving them in real life, driving a truck on the same roads or on slight offshoots of those roads, because you're probably not going to be going to the same exact places you would if you just operated a passenger vehicle, because I'm delivering cargo. It's a different perspective. So for me, it's a bit more enjoyable. Now, I initially tried Project Japan a few times and streamed this a few times back in, I think I want to say it was 2023. And back then, there were I think, only one or two regions you could drive in. But I think I was seeing more detail in those regions as I started to drive them a bit more. I just didn't get it at first because, like I mentioned before, Euro Truck Simulator 2 in the default territories, places like France, the UK, Germany, Austria, etc., the speed limits are higher, the roads are different. So the first time I got into Project Japan, what happened was I started to get accustomed to driving on the roads, and I was like, this is slow. I'm not a fan of this. And I was going to probably more than a few of the same places over and over again, and I was just like, this is kind of cool and great, but not for me. But they got busy and they updated or added to the map. So now there's not just the Osaka and like northern shore areas of Japan. You've got Osaka, you've got Kobe, you've got the North Shore, you've got the far west portion of Japan, you've got Yokohama, you've got Tokyo, and there are plenty of roads that I have not driven on yet. So, step one for me is saving up enough funds for me to actually own my own truck so that I can explore by more easily going to parts of the country that I wouldn't have seen, excuse me, I wouldn't have seen if I was just doing a quick job. And then once I get to the point where I have other folks working for me, then I'll probably have the ability to go exploring more if I want to without even taking a job. So we'll see what happens. But I can say this with more confidence now. Unless I pick the exact same routes in the exact same regions over and over again, there is going to be more variety, and there is going to be more of a chance that I'm going to have the chance to see different parts of the country and enjoy it. This is certainly something that I'd like to see be funded and and grow, because I like driving in Japan for a few reasons. Number one, the routes are interesting and they're twisty, and they've there's a pretty, what am I going to say? There's a fairly technologically advanced highway system in Japan, and driving in this part of the world is challenging. The roads are narrower, the curves kind of require you to know your vehicle more in terms of dimensions and not getting stuck. And believe me, I've driven on roads where I've already uh, banged the truck or the trailer up against things like lights, up against things like highway dividers, things like that. And it's like you kind of have to watch yourself, because it's ridiculously easy to wind up going in a direction you don't need to go, you don't want to go. But at the same time, having the ability to go and explore and also learn your truck and learn how to drive on these narrow roads, it's satisfying once you finally get it down, because you have I guess, at least I have a greater appreciation for operating a heavy truck in places like this. I haven't checked out the workshop much for additional add-ons, but I'd be curious to know if there are overseas trucks that I can drive here. I think there are. I do like this truck. I just wish it was easier for me to see whether or not there were like Japanese trucks I could drive, for example. But I'm not worried about it. This is such a enjoyable experience for me that I I'll take driving in these trucks even just for the chance to deliver cargo down these routes. And make no mistake, you are going to be kind of like kept on your toes because these roads are not that easy to drive on, especially not when you have lots of traffic. And like you can see, there's a lot of traffic they put on these roads. I'm not sure what variables they use, but Project Japan has certainly been a chance for me to, you know, get better at driving a virtual vehicle. It's more enjoyable than I expected it to be, and I'm pleased to be able to drive on these routes. When when everything comes together, you kind of start to wonder whether or not, you know, you should become a truck driver in real life, because much of this is both challenging and enjoyable. But I think I've said those words a lot already on stream, so I'll try to come up with other synonyms. For lack of a better phrase, this has been a very pleasant surprise for me, and I will most likely be driving it at least until I get the money for my own truck, and we'll see what new sites I can find once I actually get to that point. If anything, if I continue to spend as much time as I am in Euro Truck Sim or go back to American Truck Sim anytime soon, I may I may have to buy a steering wheel and gas and brake pedals just to uh, just to enjoy the experience more. But it's surprising. Like I have a pretty good time just using my gamepad for it, and I'm certainly not saying a gamepad is better than a steering wheel and pedals for driving a truck. I'm just saying I usually focus more on the overall experience. So for me, yes, eventually I think I would like to get a set of, like, you know, pedals and a steering wheel, but also if it doesn't happen for a little bit longer, I'm not going to worry about it. It's, you know, I can enjoy this without necessarily having to own one right now. Would I like one in the future? Sure. Does it have to happen right now? Probably not. There are plenty of other things which are more important and take center stage, so I'm not going to worry about them. Well, looks like I'm coasting down the hill, and this is not an easy curve. Oops. I don't think I was supposed to cross that solid line, but we are almost to Tokyo, or at least just getting past Haneda to be able to exit the highway and hop on a boat to Osaka. The ride is probably going to take about maybe 16 to 17 hours or so. Excuse me. Yeah, that's about right. Probably 16, 17 and a half hours, which most likely means we're going to be completing this delivery at night. Fortunately, the infrastructure in Japan makes even driving on the highways at night a treat. I like it. But good evening to you and welcome if you're new. If you are wondering who I am or what this is, my name is DIGI Driver and we are in Euro Truck Simulator 2. But this isn't Europe, this is Japan. There's a map mod called Project Japan that lets you drive on roads and across regions of the country to deliver cargo and functions much the same as the cargo selection and delivery that happens in the main Euro Truck Simulator 2 simulator. And it is more challenging because of the routes you have to take and the situations in which you find yourself. Sometimes you're going to be driving on very narrow roads. One particular delivery had me delivering things from, I guess, a farm on top of a mountain back down to the city. And believe me when I say it got a little tense coming up and down the side of the mountain because it was just as challenging as it was. But I guess that's what makes it, fun. Being able to actually succeed at something like navigating a one-lane road, going down the side of a hill, and just barely keeping it all in a place where you can actually maneuver. Kind of like I did just now. Oh my word. It is narrow around here sometimes. But this is fun too. I believe I figured out what the differential was in terms of time. Basically, in Euro Truck Sim 2, it takes about 40 minutes of time to navigate a 12-hour in-game trip. So, because of the difference in scale, I'm going to go ahead and say it takes about 40 minutes of real time to navigate a 6-hour trip. So if I arrive at my destination in Osaka and still have about 6 hours of driving left to do, then essentially what's going to happen is it's going to take another 40 minutes to deliver the cargo to its intended destination. I suspect it's probably going to be closer to 4 or 5 hours, but it is still going to take some time. Book of Gaming, God bless you, my brother. I pray you are very well and that the Lord is treating you and your family nicely. Happy to have you aboard, friend. Folks, if you don't know my friend Book of Gaming is an absolute privilege of a person to know. He is a fellow follower of Christ, and he likes to play video games, or specifically during the week, He likes to practice or pursue PB runs on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for the NES. And essentially, what that means is the what he does is he kind of keeps going through the game, trying to get better and better, faster and faster. He likes to play as Raph, the turtle, and I've seen some great runs. We've had lots of fun on his channel, and again, a wonderful channel to listen to and also to participate in. So please give my friend Book of Gaming a follow if you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at all, and you grew up playing on the Nintendo Entertainment System. We are in Japan tonight, and we are delivering some cargo to just outside of Osaka. So I made the journey from, I'd say, the lower portion of Tokyo Bay, Yokohama, and we're going to be delivering to kind of like the midsection of Tokyo. But to get there, we have to hop on a boat. Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome, friend. It's a privilege, and like, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Definitely a proverb that I take to heart. So we're going to be leaving Tokyo and going to Osaka, a 21-hour trek by boat. And fortunately, since I work for a company, they're paying the fee. But yeah, we are exiting the boat now. Alright, so we still have 1 hour and 51 minutes. So basically we have a third, I would almost say like somewhere between 12 to 15 minutes of real time. And then essentially we'll reach our destination and we'll be able to deliver the cargo. Euro Truck Simulator 2 is interesting. It is a driving simulator, and you do have to be careful. You do want to follow the rules of the road, because if you're not careful, you'll get speeding tickets. And I have been docked because I haven't been paying attention. And there have been times when the speed cameras, they just go, and then basically you're done. I was trying to figure out in my head how much each speeding ticket costs. I'm assuming their system of penalties is similar to other countries, but I think I got like a 15,000 yen ticket one time, which is basically the equivalent of like somewhere between $200 to maybe $400. So yeah, you don't want to do that. You also want to be careful driving because you don't want to hit anybody. Certainly you're going to pay a fine for that. Much like also you'll pay a fine if you don't drive with your headlights on. So safety is a thing. You got to be careful. The challenge is what makes being in this country very enjoyable, because you really do have to, like I said before, you have to really understand how big or how small your truck is to be able to not get yourself in trouble and not hit anything or anyone. Always better if you can reach your intended destination without having a fender bender. For me, driving a virtual truck and delivering virtual cargo is a highly enjoyable experience. Personally, it might not be the same for everyone else. So, if let's just put it this way. If you don't like driving in traffic, if you don't like, not going incredibly fast on the road, this is probably not going to be something you'll want to spend time playing. If, on the other hand, you're like me and you are a person that spends a lot of time using their brain on a regular basis to, write documents, code software, create things for other people, you can hop into this at the end of the day and drive for like a half an hour and a half, and then you can kind of just chill, like literally chill. He said, accidentally. Actually, I was I've crashed a truck a non-zero number of times. Sometimes by accident, once because I was being a knucklehead and clearly just goofing off. And, the obvious takeaway from this is if you drive a virtual truck and you wreck it because you're driving illegally, then you can hit the reset button. You can't do that in real life. So having a clear sense of responsibility is fun, but also the sim does reward you for not driving like a knucklehead, because you keep more of the profits that you make on deliveries instead of paying them out for damage penalties. And I don't think this game has reputation per se, but you're certainly going to make more money if you drive more clean. You're certainly going to make more money because you're not going to be spending as much money fixing your truck, and this would be something that you'd have to do if you operated your own company, had your own truck, had your own trailer, and delivered your own cargo. Right now I'm doing something called a quick job, which means that the company that I'm working for, owns the truck, owns the trailer, and has me delivering cargo from place to place. Eventually, what I'd like is to own my own truck and deliver freight, which means someone else's trailer and cargo. And then past that point, when I have enough money, I'll own my own truck, own my own trailer, and pick what cargo loads I want to deliver. Then the only way up from there is to hire other drivers, buy them trucks, and then have them deliver cargo for you. You need a garage for that, and I have a plot of land for that. I have like a very, very basic garage, but because I don't own my own truck yet, it's not a place that I own, that I have. Now, there are funny moments when you're driving, when the AI, gets in your way, or you're trying to navigate very, very narrow portions of the city or the country, and the other drivers are like, dude, what are you doing? You're in my way. And the cars do honk a bit, which is funny. I kind of like that, in the sense that, the game, there's this kind of like living, breathing thing going on where you have to be at your best, and you you also have to just know how to operate your vehicle. Is it occasionally hilarious if you wreck your truck? I think I think the funny part is that it's more funny to me sometimes when, like, I'm trying to get through a very tight space, and the the other cars just keep coming. I'm like, hey dude, yo dude, can you like give me a chance, please? In general though, I think the AI in this simulator is actually more forgiving than the way folks drive in real life, for obvious or not so obvious reasons, because you know the computer kind of understands, okay, hey, this guy has to get going, and the algorithm eventually shifts and says, okay, we'll let you through now. Whereas probably IRL, somebody would be like, nope, not on my watch. So you have to wait longer and longer and longer and longer, and eventually you do get to where you're going. just not as fast as you'd like. So we are now in Kobe, and we have about 34 kilometers to go. I don't know if you missed when I was talking earlier, Book of Gaming, but I was talking about the difference in map scale. In the main Euro Truck Simulator 2 simulator, the scale is 119. So basically, the vehicles, well, not the vehicles, the maps are smaller, which means you get to where you want to go faster. In Project Japan, which is this map mod, the scale is 110. And what I assume that means is, because the scale is smaller, that means the map is actually larger, which means it takes you more time to get to where you're going. On top of the fact that the speed limits are lower anyway, because the numbers you see in those white and red circles, those represent kilometers per hour. So basically, if I'm going 40 kilometers per hour, I would probably imagine I'm driving about the equivalent of somewhere between 25 to 30 miles per hour. And that's not very fast. But it also makes reaching your intended destination more enjoyable because you know you put the hours in to get the truck where you need to go. And yes, if you have violations turned on, you can and will get speeding tickets. So, like I mentioned before, you do want to be careful, and you do kind of want to watch your surroundings. Yeah, yeah. It's like you gotta put the hours in to get good. You don't go from noob to master without getting your hands on the wheel, so to speak. Much like you, like when you put in the time and you keep going, and Turtles 2, you outside, like if you have to learn a new segment, or you have to figure out how to actually shave a tenth of a second off a time. You keep working on it. You keep putting time into it to to get the training in, and then basically it 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 comes it comes in time. Like you have to invest the effort. I like driving on the highways in Japan because there's like there's so many roads that are connected by highways. I feel like the road system is more thought out. Like there's more of a it's like every kilometer is on purpose for a reason. But at the same time, I mean, in the States, in the USA, we have loads of roads, lots of highway. The interstate highways crisscross the country, and you you have this huge, enormous interstate network which connects loads of cities and states together, which is this beautiful, beautiful orchestra for anybody driving a truck and delivering cargo. Now, I mean, I would imagine most of the time, if you're going to be delivering cargo over extended distances, you're probably going to ship most of the cargo by plane or train, and then take the cargo once it reaches a major destination, put it on a truck, and deliver it the rest of the way. That's what I'd imagine. But I could be wrong about that. You have to say, I enjoy this. Like, in other words, if Book of Gaming is big on, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, speedrun streams, and getting better and better at it, I think this could be part of my repertoire, which is basically driving in Japan. But I also like to fly airplanes in Flight Simulator. So, depending on how I feel after I wrap up this run, I might either go flying in the sim, or I might do scenery development, and I can show you some of the things that I have to do in order to actually build an airport, or to expand an airport, so that you can actually fly out of someplace that looks different and looks interesting. There's a lot of work that goes into creating an airport, and it is not something that happens that quickly. You have to really pour into it, your time, your effort. I don't think I have very many videos, very many VODs of me doing scenery development lately, because I've mostly I've mostly either driven virtual trucks or flown, but I've developed a few airports as well. Crashed a plane on top of someone's house. Actually, let's have a little bit of fun with that one. You've probably heard of Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you haven't, it's basically a way for you to fly virtual aircraft around the world. And the latest version of Microsoft Flight Simulator lets you fly in a place that's that looks so realistic. Depending on what part of the world you fly in, it is entirely possible that you will literally see your house represented in the simulator almost exactly as it looks. So, while it's not something that many flight sim streamers encourage or joke around by saying, yes, if you really wanted to and you saw your house, you could take a virtual airplane and go crash on top of it. I prefer not to think of it on those terms, but yes, it is theoretically possible. Um, oh wow, it's not even on Google Maps yet. Okay, yes, that sounds very believable, because I think I've seen that before. I spent time in New York City, for example, many years ago. I spent some years there, and one of the cool things that happens, not that happens, one of the cool things that I can see in the sim is you can actually see many of the buildings in Manhattan, and they're well represented. Oh, excuse me, looks like I went the wrong way. Let me fix that. Excuse me. Should be able to get turned around. Don't mind me. Coming through. Gotta be careful. You have it up on Google Maps and just has dirt roads. Yep, yep, again, sounds about right. We're almost to the end of this run. And no, you're not seeing things. That's not $1.69 per gallon. That's $1.69 per liter, I'm pretty sure. So you're if you want to fill up the total price will go up pretty quickly. What's impressed me about this sim is just how wonderful and well represented the graphics are. What I'm trying to say, things look cool and they look believable. course, I chuckle when I say this, but I kind of mean it too. Whenever I play Project Japan, occasionally I get a craving for ramen soup, and I would like to take a bucket list trip to Japan for the specific purpose of having a foodie tour and eating ramen and eating local cuisine and taking in the sights. If I did a bucket list trip to Japan, I would eat ramen, go to Tokyo, go to probably Sendai and not Sendai. I think Osaka is where the huge Gundam robot is that you can actually see, and I think there's like a theme park, so to speak. I might go to check out the Subaru, Fuji Heavy Industries plant if they give you like tours, and buy some like really inexpensive but at the same time highly expensive trinkets when I'm over there, because that's what you do. Oh, look at that. I think I was talking so much that I actually neglected to pay attention to where I was going. That's cool. That's cool. I must still have time. mm, ramen soup, dude. Okay, now for the slightly confused folks in the back, let me clarify this. When I say ramen, I am not talking about the supermarket ramen bricks that you can buy, that you can, eat. I mean, I don't know, maybe some college kid eats them raw because they find it's just a lot more uh, convenient for them and they basically get the same benefit. They eat them like potato chips. I don't know. I'm not going to say. But we're not talking about things like, I'm not talking about things like, the packets of soup that you can buy. I'm talking about going to a restaurant and having a bona fide bowl of like super amazing soup that you can like consume and have it fill your belly. Now, for lack of a better phrase, I've deconstructed some of the soups that I've had in the past where I could take like a ramen brick, put a raw egg in it, season it up, put some ham, maybe some vegetables, and make it into a really good meal. But I'm not even kidding. I'm sure I wouldn't even touch some of the chefs out there in Japan that make something that you will walk away from going, "Oh my goodness, that was amazing." That's the kind of stuff I want to have if I were to go there. And oh yeah, I have hit my truck on these light posts. So you want to watch out. You do not want to hit them. But you also want to keep your truck as close to the road as possible without hitting them. Because you will damage your truck or your trailer or worse, your cargo. And we'd prefer not to do that. Okay, so I was not paying attention before, but I think this traffic light is where I turn to deliver my cargo. Or just the next one over. Okay, it's not there. It's gonna be the next one over. There we go. Here we are. All right, so I've got to my destination. Let's see how long it takes for me to back into this spot. That's the thing about driving here in this version of the sim. you don't get you it's very rare that you get an easy parking job like this. All right, so let's shove this all the way over. Okay. What's sometimes pretty funny about this is you the first time that you have to back your truck into a spot, you have to figure out that right actually means your trailer goes left, and left actually means your trailer goes right. Yes, I actually said that correctly. All right. And now we're pretty much where we need to be. There we go. And that is a load of cargo delivered from Yokohama in the Tokyo area to the Kobe area. There we go. Let's turn the truck off and deliver the goods. All right, extra 90 experience points. And how long have I been on stream so far? There we go. So, 25 hours and 27 minutes of in-sim time, give or take an extra minute or two because I drove past the entrance. And I've been on for I think that took me somewhere in the vicinity of like 45 minutes. And that's mostly because the ship getting myself shipped from Tokyo to here took about 21 hours. So that's about 4 hours and 27 minutes. Yep, yeah, that sounds right. Wonderful. Here we go. Here we go. Now we have the total transparency chat. We're talking about accountability here. Hey, Digi, I noticed you had, 6 traffic violations totaling almost 100,000 yen. You want to talk about it? Yeah, like, you don't seem to be behaving properly on the road. Look at that, look at that. Out in the open. 1 red light violation, 3 speeding tickets, and 2 crashes. Driving in Japan is not easy. First try. Nice. But I don't turn off violations because I feel like I try to make my driving be as respectful as possible, because generally if you do that, I feel like you extract more value from the sim. Now, am I going to tell you that turning traffic violations off is a bad idea? I ain't judging you. This is how I like to operate the sim. Now, if some of y'all are wondering why I'm that particular about doing this kind of stuff or being this picky about how I drive, it's because I try to match what I do in the sim with what I do in real life. I try to be as respectful and courteous and considerate of others as possible because I'm a follower of Christ. And I'm not a follower of Christ so I can try to be better. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ because I know that I can't be better. I believe that I, like everyone else born in this world, has a sin problem. And we try to paper it over with, good deeds or trying to work really hard at getting ourselves into, better shape or doing better things with our lives. But at the end of the day, all of us have a void in our souls that we can't fill up with anything that this world offers. You were born on purpose for a reason. And one of the biggest reasons for your life is to have a personal relationship with God through Christ. And some of you are like, hey, Digi, what does that mean? Like, why do you keep talking about this Jesus guy? And, wasn't he some weirdo that lived over 2,000 years ago? What are you doing talking about him like that for? For me personally, Jesus Christ is real. And it's not just a personal belief. He is real. He's not just a character in some story that, you might appreciate or you might just dismiss because he's just way too weird. He was a very real person that was born, lived on this planet, and then was killed, died, and then 3 days later rose from the grave. And I believe he came to this earth to live a perfect life, to die in my place, to redeem my soul, and to reconnect me in relationship with Almighty God, so that regardless of whether the rest of my days were easy or unimaginably hard, I would have hope for eternity and a home in heaven alongside and with the creator of the universe. And if for any reason you're not feeling the best today, or it's Valentine's Day and you just aren't feeling it, you feel sad, you feel lonely, I want you to know that the creator of the universe wants to have a relationship with you. And you can do it as easily as coming before God in prayer. Even if you've never prayed in your life before, but you understand there are things about your life that you just don't like, or you just don't find hope in every day. And you can say something as simple as, God, I know you're there. You have to be. You're calling out to me right now and I want to answer. Help me. I don't want to do this life on my own anymore. I'm too sad, or I'm too confused, or I'm too angry, or I just can't bear who I am anymore. And I am willing to believe that you brought me to this point so that you could show me who you are. I want to know you, and I want to know your son who died in my place to take my sins and to pay for them and to give me newness of life. Jesus, I want you to be my Savior. I want you to be my Lord. I want you to be my King. Save me from hell. Take my life and give me a new one. Fill me with your Spirit. And help me to understand everything about you through the Bible, through fellowship with other believers, through a church. I give this all to you in Jesus' name. If you prayed that prayer and you meant it, then my belief is that by confessing with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believing that God raised him from the dead, you are saved. And not just now, and not just into a better or easier life, because sometimes life gets easier, sometimes life gets way harder. You're saved for all eternity. You're saved into a relationship with God that gives you peace in the midst of some of the biggest storms, because you know who you can lean on when things are falling apart. And peace for eternity, because you get to spend eternity with God in heaven now and not in hell. And unfortunately, if you don't choose him, or if you choose to deny him, that's where you'll be. That's why I offered that prayer to anyone that wants to know him. And if you don't want to know him, or you don't care right now, I just want you to know that I'm happy to have you here, and I pray that your day goes better, even if for some reason today has not gone well for you. So, we made a delivery. We spent about 45 minutes driving. I don't know. Do I want to do scenery development? I might. That way I can kind of, chip into a little bit more work that I'm doing in the sim. Or who knows, maybe I'll fire up the flight simulator and we'll just go flying for fun. Let's go figure that out right now. Let me change the title of my stream as well, so that I can actually do something different. There we go. I'm going to update the stream title now. Okay, so changing the title, changing the category, and we are going to go into Microsoft Flight Simulator. There's another category called Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which I'm not going to be going into today since I'm going to be working on an older sim. I want to try to create some airport things. There is an airport I built up for a friend in Kentucky, in the southwestern portion of Kentucky. It's Mayfield Graves County Airport, and the airport code, the designator for it, is M25, Mike 25. It's a very small airport. It's useful for general aviation aircraft only, and it is... Oh, you know what? This is different. I might need to adjust my resolution. Give me a moment. So we're gonna go build some things. There we go. That's better. So, if you're not familiar with Microsoft Flight Simulator, again, it is one of the recent versions of flight simulation offered up by Microsoft and created in partnership with a company called Asobo. This was released, this particular one, the one that I like to call FS 2020, was released sometime in August of 2020. It's about 4.5 years ago. They recently released Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 in November of last year. That one still got a little bit of growing up to do because there are changes that they made in the sim and updates and probably new things. And as a software developer, I can tell you sometimes when you release a product, there are things that work and there are things that don't. So they're working to try to fix those things that don't work. And I am flying both simulators. I have the new one for general aviation flying, and the old one, which is the one we're looking at today, for the purpose of flying big airplanes, airliners. You can fly cargo jets. You can fly military aircraft here if you want to. But it's strictly peacetime, peaceful operations. You can't simulate battles and stuff like that. At least I don't think you can. So I like coming in here and building things up. I've released a few airports on flightsim.to, If you go to flightsim.to and you look up DIGI Driver, you'll see some 2020 airports you can download. There's also one airport I released in 2024, which is Higginsville. It's Kilo Hotel India Golf. The airport code is KHIG, and it is also a general aviation airport you can fly into and out of. In fact, we might do a quick flight or two in this today if I get tired of doing scenery dev and decide to do something different. So we are in the sim right now, and as you can tell, you can go pretty much anywhere in the world, and I have used this for many years. Now, we want to go to Kentucky, so easiest thing we can do is type in M25, and there's Mayfield, Graves County, Mayfield. So here is the airport. The only problem is the airport in the sim doesn't have a lot of the things that we'd like to see at airports in general. It doesn't have parking positions from which you can spawn into. You can only spawn in on the runway. So that's what I'm doing by updating the airport. And there are plenty of planes you can choose to fly. I think I'm going to just grab a little general aviation plane and park it there, because we're not going to be flying it right now. We are going to be working on the airport there. And I'm going to get rid of some of the designators because I'm not an airliner. I don't have a flight number. This will actually be placed on the airplane as the registration for the airplane. And that's it. But unlike Euro Truck Simulator 2, where you could actually drive on a compressed map, Microsoft Flight Simulator is a one-to-one map. It will literally take you 2.5 hours to fly from, say, the New Jersey or New York area to Orlando if you wanted to. And you know what? Let's have a little bit of fun. I'm going to show you the Mayfield area in the sim, just so you get a concept of the graphics in here, and then we'll land and we'll do a little bit of work. This is the airplane that I have. This is a Diamond DA40. It's a maybe a 4-passenger airplane, probably just a 2-passenger airplane. Looks like a 4, but it's very narrow. And this is the airport that we're at. There are some things that are not well represented. The wind sock that tells you from what direction the wind is blowing, like that sock over there, that's supposed to be here, but it's actually there in the sim. And one of the reasons why is because when these airports were generated for use in the simulator, I think the overwhelming majority of them were generated by using artificial intelligence or a computer program. So what some people like myself have done is that they've gone ahead and they've basically made more detailed versions of airports that are more recognizable. So let's take care of the parking brake. And now let's go ahead and take off. Let's also add some flaps. And try to keep it close to the center line. Digi, come on. Come on. The ground handling is not easy to do, especially not on a gamepad. But we're already up in the air. Okay, now this airplane has fixed landing gear, so the landing gear is not going to retract. But at the same time, I am going to go ahead and put my flaps away. And now we can start flying. Mayfield is off to my left, so we will start a slow turn. No more than 30 degrees. I think a 30-degree turn is what they call a 2-minute turn to do 360 degrees. I don't know if it's 30 degrees or like 10 degrees or something like that, but whatever the case, we're going to go ahead west a little bit, and we should be flying over the town shortly. Let me adjust my time to make sure that I am on real time. And let's see, right now it is roughly almost 5:15. So this looks about right. The airport we just took off from is here. The town of Mayfield is here. And we have an interstate highway beneath us. And then we have basically the town. And if you keep your nose pointed in the direction in which we're going, we're probably going to see the border of either Indiana or Illinois, and maybe the extreme upper right-hand portion of Missouri or Iowa. My geography is rusty, but essentially, if you keep going in this general direction, you will, with an infinite amount of fuel, eventually reach places like Oklahoma, southeastern Colorado, and then eventually New Mexico and Arizona before flirting with the US-Mexico border. But this is the town of Mayfield, and in the sim does a great job of adding in loads of buildings and providing a very realistic representation of areas that you might recognize. Oklahoma is okay. Sounds like a dad joke. Because I'd probably say something like that. But the abbreviation for Oklahoma is also okay. Ha! Now, in the sim, there are two kinds of scenery that you might fly over. One is this kind of scenery, standard scenery. It comes in two flavors. One flavor is basically the kind of scenery we're looking at, where they have, I think it's called open map data, which approximates the kinds of buildings that you see. You will see approximations of things like shopping malls, buildings, hospitals. Oh, that's their actual slogan? I forgot. Nice. If like you lived in Mayfield, for example, you would probably be able to pick out your house, but it would not look exactly like your house because the computer provided an approximation of the neighborhood. The guy that came up with it must have been a dad. Nice. Now, there's also another kind of scenery that you'll see. They call it photographic scenery, and basically, photogrammetric scenery. It's what happens when in the simulator you get a laser scanned three-dimensional copy of a town or a city like Los Angeles, New York, Orlando, Chicago. What happens is they take, I guess they take satellite imagery and they basically turn it from a 2D picture into a 3D picture by using a computer and mapping or calculating the size of buildings to a certain extent. That's what we call photogrammetry in the sim. Now, I don't want to take too much time flying because I think I'd like to add a few pieces of scenery to my airport. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit a button that will let me fly really fast to wherever I want to go. And it's what we call the slew button. In this sim, it's Y. The keyboard Y kind of pauses the sim and lets me fly as fast or as slow as I want. I just want to see whether or not we can get to a spot where I can see photogrammetry so I can show you what the difference is. My guess is that Cincinnati is probably going to have photogrammetry. So let's follow this river up, and eventually, if we do, I think this is the Ohio River, we'll eventually get to Cincinnati. And you'll see the difference between the scenery that I'm flying over right now, as well as the scenery that exists. Give me a moment. Let me take a look at the map. Okay, so Nashville is that way. We need to go even further up northeast. So I'm going to keep using slew mode and go up this way. I should eventually get to Cincinnati at this rate. And as I fly, the sim is loading more areas, more scenery. So let me go even faster. And eventually we're going to see Cincinnati come into view. And it is on the northern portion of Kentucky, which would be the southern portion of Ohio. So let me go ahead and zoom this map in just a touch. Oh, I can't zoom it in, okay. And normally a flight like this in a plane at these speeds would take a long time, but because I am kind of cheating, I am going to get there a lot faster. What I don't necessarily know is where Cincinnati is, and it might just be easy for me to teleport there, but I'm also kind of having fun too. Okay, there we go. You see CVG right here? That is a VOR radio station that basically acts as a navigation aid. That also tells me that I'm going to get close to where Cincinnati is. And then you're going to see what the scenery for Cincinnati looks like. If my guess is correct, we're going to be able to see that Cincinnati has a lot of laser scanned scenery. So, let's see. It's not a guarantee, but hopefully we'll see that. Okay, so Cincinnati International Airport is probably about 10 to 12 nautical miles off to my right at like my 2 o'clock. So what I'm hoping to see is some well-represented scenery. However, I think I picked the wrong city for this because I don't see any laser scanned scenery here. Also, there's a lot of weather in the area that I'm having trouble seeing past, so I might just make the skies clear for now. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I was right. Look at this. Okay. It's hard to tell right now, but because it's winter, you don't have green on the trees. The grass is like kind of like muted because it's cold and you don't have grass growing right now. But let me fast forward a teensy bit more. All right. Now, check this out. Now we're coming into photogrammetry. So let me go ahead and get back in the plane. All right. We'll cut the throttle and we'll start coasting down. Photogrammetry basically means this. Instead of seeing approximations of buildings, you actually have laser scanned copies of buildings that show up in greater detail as you get closer to them. So, if you lived just outside of Cincinnati International Airport, for example, unlike the earlier example where we were flying over Mayfield, you would literally be able to pick out your house, and it would probably look very much like your house does in real life. In particular, the houses that I'm flying over right now, it's kind of hard to tell because I'm flying over them pretty quickly, but they do look, these neighborhoods do look, or I'm assuming they look, pretty realistic. Now, okay, a little bit of a, reality check. This kind of flying would probably not be recommended in real life unless you were communicating with an air traffic controller close to the airport. They understood what your intentions were, and you weren't getting in the way of, big airplanes taking off or landing in an airport like this. Because I would imagine you probably don't spend a lot of time flying into and out of airports like this. You'd probably go to a place like, say LAX or JFK or Philadelphia or Orlando. But some folks that fly out of Ohio fly out of Cincinnati. And there are airline flights out of there. Okay, see that? Macy's. That's a logo from like a mall. This is photogrammetry, which means you can make out details on buildings and roads that you recognize in real life. It's not always perfect. In fact, it's kind of rarely perfect because the level of detail that you can put into a laser scan, it kind of gets grainier and more difficult to pick out the closer you get to the actual image. Now, I do think that some methods of photogrammetry have improved rather extensively since 2020, but I think there's still limitations as well. So it looks like this area has a bunch of like hotels and small stores. And looks like this is a racetrack for, I'm guessing, horses. All right, let's give it a little bit of power just so we get above the trees. I don't want to crash. That'd be more of a ha-ha moment than a sad moment. That's better. Hey, Eric Flight, good to see you, my friend. Welcome back. I'm just having fun showing my friend Book of Gaming around the sim. This is FS 2020. I am in, I'd say, greater Cincinnati. Actually, matter of fact, where's the city? Oh, I think the city's right there. So right now I'm like at 2K resolution, which is kind of why the sim looks a little bit choppy. But let me do this. I'm curious as to how much frames I'm actually getting right now. Let me go to frame rate. Okay, so like 40 frames per second. I'm happy with that. Um, Lossless scaling and frame generation is probably not going to help me because I think frame generation, believe it or not, works better when you actually have more than 60 frames per second to begin with. But let me see if anything improves when I turn lossless scaling on. Give me a moment, chat. We're going to do it anyway. And yes, that was an airliner just now. Okay, so I just turned lossless scaling on and it just kicked in. It kind of sort of makes it smoother for me at 2K resolution. Oh, that's right. A lot of people have been talking about DLSS 4. Let me see something actually. Let me check general options. I think I have it installed on my computer, unless I'm wrong. This is DLSS Super Resolution. I don't know how to tell if I'm using DLSS 4. I was using TAA at one point. Let me put this on Ultra Performance. I'm just curious. And let me check my frame rate. So, at 2K resolution with lossless scaling, with my graphic preset set the way it is, and Ultra Performance DLSS, I'm getting between, say, like 40 to 45 frames per second. Local lows, I think, are like 40, 42. But this is Ultra Performance 2K resolution. I don't know. Maybe I'll be happy with the frame rate as experienced in the sim with this kind of frame rate, since the screens aren't that grainy. Newest splash file, use DLSS Swapper, the newest frame gen mod, and NVIDIA drivers. I might give that a shot. I might actually give that a shot, to be honest. There are still, there's still a little bit of artifacting when you scroll or when you move the viewpoint, but I don't know, man. Like, I do like the enhanced resolution, that's for sure. When I was flying around in the sim a few nights ago, I was in 1080p and I was in TAA, and I like 1080p because it's like my television screen's native resolution. It can go as high as 2K resolution, but it's a lot smoother. Like the refresh rate is tuned for 1080p. 2K is beautiful, but at the same time, I wonder if I just have more fun at 1080p because my brain doesn't notice as much flickery stuff. Islands and pilots. Okay, I think I'll look for that. But Book of Gaming, if you're still here, this is basically photogrammetric scenery, photogrammetry. Basically, the scans of satellite imagery are run through a computer so that it can generate things like you know, baseball fields, buildings, certain kinds of skyscrapers, bridges. Although I think I find in general with bridges, the effect of rendering a bridge isn't always the best. There's something that it still has difficulty doing to generate the object, and I think what you really need to do is basically just rep, uh, replace that with a 3D model of a bridge and not just a satellite image. With that said, Cincinnati looks wonderful from the air. Wow, I'm getting like 50 frames per second right now. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, I may have to give DLSS 4 a shot. This is wonderful. All right. I will say I am a fan of higher resolutions for less grainy and less unenjoyable stuff. I sometimes wish it was easier to simulate driving a vehicle over this terrain as well, because then you'd be able to tie in flying and driving. Many of us joke around with the idea of driving to the airport, going through the terminal, and getting to your aircraft and flying it, but it's not as absurd an idea anymore, especially not since FS 2024 lets you walk across many places. So it's kind of it's a kind of fun idea to me at least. And again, in places where photogrammetry exists, you can really drill down into neighborhoods from the appropriate altitude, and you can see proper representations of things like buildings, grocery stores, schools, universities, gas stations. It depends on the level of detail that they put into actually rendering a neighborhood. In fact, if you really wanted to get a little bananas, let's pick a helicopter, and I'll pick one of my favorite helicopters, the G2. And let me take the frame rate away since I don't care about that anymore. And let's go down. And let's see. I think that looks like a hospital down there. Let's go check it out. I think the wind is coming from the north-northeast. But watch what happens. Watch what happens when we start getting closer to the ground. So there's a point at which photogrammetry kind of starts to get grainy, but check this out. This is basically laser scanned scenery. And there's a sweet spot, I feel like somewhere between 1,000 to like 2,000 feet where it really looks wonderful. And I'll take the time back a few hours just so it's easy to see things. Probably better in 2D in chase plane mode. So right around like 1,000 to 2,000 feet above the ground, you make out just enough detail to really be able to pick out buildings. Anything closer and they might not look as good. I think this is a hospital though, especially if there's a rooftop helipad somewhere. But I don't think there's a helipad here. Unless, of course, that's the helipad in that orange segment, but that wouldn't make sense. You'd probably want the helipad for a hospital to be kind of prominent and outside of any other obstacles. Let's go have a little bit of fun in downtown for a moment. I will say that lossless scaling, when combined with DLSS 3, makes my experience even at 2K pretty smooth. And for reference, I have a Ryzen 9 5090X, no, sorry, 5900X, and I have a 3060 Ti NVIDIA graphics card. So in essence, I guess it's like an overclocked 3060 with you know, a little extra oomph. I think the reason why I like lossless scaling is generally because it enhances P3D. Well, not P3D, it enhances this, or sometimes Euro Trucks M2. I think it kind of smooths out the visuals. It's not something that I need for virtual trucking. It's not something that I necessarily need for flight sim, but at this resolution, I think I'm starting to like how it's actually making everything else play out. Okay, Island Sim Pilot. There we go. I wouldn't mind, adding that extra ability to use DLSS 4. I don't know how well it would work with my 3060 Ti, but I'm willing to give it a try. Let's see. Great American... Great American Insurance? Yep, Great American Insurance Group. There we go. There we go. In fact, I'm going to spin around. This is pretty cool. All right, so let me just kind of skirt past this building. Yeah, it's not a perfect representation of the building. Photogrammetry rarely is, if ever. But I'm impressed with how well they've gotten the algorithms to render these kinds of buildings the way they're supposed to be rendered. I'm not sure if they have to hand finish these models, but if it's all computer generated, it's actually pretty good. Also, the computer is helping me with my cyclic and my hovering, there's an option you can turn on in controls or assistance options in FS 2020, which gives you assistance with the helicopter. It doesn't mean it's going to hold it perfectly in place. I am drifting a bit even while I'm hovering, but it's very nice to be able to not have to keep on top of every single control feedback you provide to this thing. Also, I don't know how technologically advanced this helicopter is in real life, but I would imagine it might be. So, photogrammetry lets you see certain details, but certain other things are still less than desirable. The algorithm likes to put a lot of trees in around photogrammetry, so it's not always the best. But with regards to skyscrapers in downtown areas in cities, it's wonderful. Like Tokyo drifting or Joy-Con drifting. Yes, hover drifting is a thing. But that's just because the computer is basically applying intelligence to keep the helicopter steady, not necessarily keep it in one spot. Now, if you are flying a helicopter that's so advanced that you can have an autopilot mode that keeps you hovering in one spot, that's a different story. That's like the systems working together to make sure that the helicopter stays put, which is cool. Now, the traffic algorithms in this simulator are not perfect. There's supposed to be traffic going one way and traffic going the other. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that's okay. And then, if we really wanted to, we could do this. We could go to this football field. And land on it. And if you're careful, you can pull it off. So you could literally, theoretically drop off a football player for practice. Now, mind you, I'm fighting ground effect here, and I'm kicking up a bunch of wind. And for some reason, the grass is floating in the air. But at the same time, if we ignore all that and gently keep descending, a little bit more. There we go. We're on the ground. There we are. It's not perfect. The elevation map isn't the best. My landing pylons are inside the field, but for a 3D scanned flat image, this is not bad. Then off we go. This kind of technology blew people away, myself included, about 5 years ago when it was released in the summer. And the meme for Flight Sim was, people buying the sim just to find their house. which honestly is an amazing thing. You think about it, like we used to dream of levels of detail this extensive in flight simulators in our youth, so to speak. 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we wanted stuff to look this good, and it didn't. It couldn't. It's great. So that's fine. And let me go ahead and do this. Let me plunk the helicopter back down on the ground. We'll go into this field out here. Let's see if I can do this without going outside the helicopter. Okay, we gotta be gentle. So, going back up a little bit. Satco, there we go. No, we didn't have very many virtual cockpits, if any. It was two-dimensional panels, and baby, we had fun with those things. Okay, so gently, gently, and we're going outside. But no, don't look outside, Digi. Put it down. Basically, right now, I'm fighting ground effect. So all the air I'm pushing down is kind of giving me a lift. Yeah, see? It was pushing me back down. And blam, I put it down too fast. But that's okay. There we go. This is not bad, considering this is like a flat image. Let me teleport back to the airport. Go to airport. We'll go back to Mike 25. And now we're back at the airport we were at when we started. And now I can basically shut this thing off. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to load the map that I've been working on. And you're going to see the grass that was here disappear if it loads properly. And I can show you the level of detail that I've added to this airport. Okay, so now we're in. And now, if I back out far enough, I can get rid of the grass texture. And essentially, this is what I was working on quietly for my friend, which I'm probably going to release on FlightSim.to in the not too distant future. Mike 25, Mayfield, Graves County. This is the airport we spawned in at about maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes ago. And, as you can tell, I've made some changes. Now, we have the windsock where it's supposed to go. It has these things around it. I don't know what their purpose is. I just know they usually surround the windsock. And we have a tarmac with parking spaces. There are these green circles. This is where you can choose to spawn in the sim. There's still a lot that I have to do and replace, but we're no longer in the grass like we used to, and this taxiway actually exists now. In the sim, in the default airport, it's not there. We also have a few extra things that we didn't have before. We have fuel tanks and fencing, and eventually what I'd like to do is replace this FBO with a custom one. Oh, thank you. Yes, you did mention that to me before. That was one of the first things that I looked into because there was a taxiway that wasn't represented in the default Plymouth airport, which I want to fix. Or, excuse me, I want to complete at some point. But, with that said, scenery developers like myself suffer from one big problem. We have this thing called never done itis because we always think we can add additional things or fix this piece or fix that piece or make this new or put this here. And eventually what happens is people are like, dude, quit adding stuff. Just release the thing. And you have to figure out how much is enough, like how good is good. But fortunately, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at that lately as opposed to when I first got started. There are still things I need to work on, putting down fencing, replacing this with a different building, if there is a building there anymore, and also adding in a few other details to make this place look great. And if you get rid of the editing rectangles, it's a lot easier to see how the changes reflect because you don't see all those other polygons in the way. Eventually, the fencing is going to go all the way out here, and there might be a gate, or I can always work on custom fencing to make this look even better, which is entirely possible. And yeah, there is still a lot to be done at this place, but once I get the fencing done and once I add a bunch of extra details, I'm probably going to release it on flightsim.to. What I might do for a payware release is to create every single building custom, move the beacon, create a custom beacon, make sure the light actually lines up better with it if I can, and then, I don't know, make some of the hangars interactive or something. But there we go. Let me think. Wow, I've been streaming now for about almost 2 hours. This is kind of unheard of for me. It's kind of fun. Let me add a few pieces of fence and then I can save my work and probably call it a night tonight. But to everyone that's been sticking around and watching me today, first off, thank you. I appreciate your support. Second, I do actually do scenery development for Microsoft Flight Simulator and FS 2024. I just need to kind of rearm that scenery dev enthusiasm and place objects again and just keep going. You know, it's kind of like the thing where some flight sim streamers go, if I don't fly a certain aircraft for a while, I get rusty at it. It's kind of the same thing for me and scenery development. But the good news is, most of the time anyway, the 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 usual process is, hey, you're gonna be fine. Just make sure you keep going. Okay, so 04. I think I'm going to keep using 04 instead of 04B like I used to. And I think what I'm going to do is... Okay, this is good enough. let's use middle and put this down. So when you put a piece of fence down, you can leave it where it is, or you can rotate it so that it looks more representative of where you want to place the thing. And there was something which I believe was supposed to happen in the SDK where you could literally draw a line of fences and then basically have them placed correctly. But unfortunately, I want to say I feel like it went by the wayside, um, because the the fact that I'm developing for both FS 2024 and FS 2020, that means that the the SDK that shows up for both of them is the same, even though I have two separate ones. I have a FS 2020 SDK and a 2024 SDK. The way the logic or the sims work out which one's supposed to exist for which sim, it feels like it's a little bit messed up right now, so it's not working the way that I'd want it to. Book of Gaming, I love your soul. God bless you and your family. My brother, take care. I might just drop in and say hello. If you're not on tonight, I'm sure it's because you are enjoying time with your family, taking care of your wonderful wife. I will endeavor to do the same. So if you don't see me on tonight saying hello or cracking dad jokes, it's because I'm chilling out. But enjoy. And of course, again, friends, if you want to see some classic Nintendo Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 arcade game gameplay and speedruns, and spend time with somebody who is definitely Digi approved, look no further than Book of Gaming. Take care, my friend. Okay, so this point is too big for a middle piece. I'm gonna have to move this over. I'm gonna take the heading value and I'm going to use it on this one, so it's pointing in the same direction. And like I like to say sometimes, this is the non-glamorous side of scenery dev. Sometimes you literally have to um, split fences and put them where they're supposed to go, because you just have to. The sim is not going to do it for you. And if you want to add more detail to a place like this, you have to do it yourself. The benefits of doing this, of course, are twofold. Again, we didn't have those green spawn areas where you can actually load into the airport and not be on the runway. We didn't have that taxiway before. We didn't have this fence. We didn't have this road. We didn't have any of it. Or at least, I don't remember having any of it. Extra detail doesn't even have to be perfect. If it's close enough, you kind of won't forget, it won't bother at all, and your brain will kind of fill in the gaps, and you'll be like, oh wow, like I'm at the airport. So in one sense, your job is kind of to bridge the gap in terms of people seeing what your airport looks like. You don't have to create a perfect copy of an airport unless that's what you want to do. And if you really do that, I'm sure it will pay major, major dividends. So, you know, you do what you want to do. If that's what you want to go for, go for it. there is a point for me at which I have to say something like, this is good enough. I'm not going to worry. And I kind of learned that over the past several years, or at least the past few years. Ooh, this is perfect. That's great. Okay, so this almost perfectly lines up with the road. And if I move it over a teensy bit, it should probably still be fine. Okay. Now the problem is that it's not going to be just fine because it's not going to work. However, let me see. Let me get granular with the placement. And I can always make the scenery work to bend to fit my will. Remember, you're not going to be putting a plane through this fence, so I can make the scenery work to suit me. I don't have to worry about this being perfect. And really, that is the basic problem. Because the enemy of done is like, no, this needs to be perfect. Don't worry about it being perfect. If you're building an airport and you have the passion for it, your first probably several dozen iterations of that airport in terms of how you release a scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator, they're probably not going to look that great. And I know. So take your time, enjoy the process, know that the first several iterations of anything you do in the sim aren't going to work out the best. And just embrace it. Understand that's exactly what's going to happen and do it anyway. Okay. So maybe I can actually get this fence built, this side of the fence built before I finish for today. Maybe I can do that. Um, it's actually not a bad idea. And because the outer ridges are going like this, I can grab a copy of the fence from down here, duplicate it, and move it over. Then what we can do is we can copy the heading value here, and we can do the rest. This takes time and effort. And I think I might start getting back in the habit of doing more scenery dev streams just to answer questions from chat and have fun building things in front of people like I used to. There was a while where I took a break and I actually wasn't doing anything like that. But at the same time, this is still something that I enjoy. It's just that, you know, you get to a place every once in a while where you want everything that you do to be absolutely perfect or as good as you can get it. And I don't know about you guys, but I get frustrated with myself very easily because it doesn't match up with my expectations or it doesn't match up with what I want it to look like. And to an extent, you kind of have to ask yourself a simple question. Do you want something to be made to the extent where you it's absolutely mind-blowingly perfect, or do you want to get done? Because depending on how much time and effort it's going to take you to accomplish something, you might wind up burning yourself out for, I'm going to say, like no particularly good reason. And then you're going to be like, what was I complaining about this for? Like, how many people are going to take the time to inspect every single square inch of my airport for imperfections? Now, there was a time when, let's just say, I was a bit of a snob with regards to scenery, but here's the thing. I don't think anybody cares about my opinion, and that's okay. And I think the upside of that is also because no one cares about that, I don't have to spend time worrying whether or not whether or not it's a good idea for me to be as exact with the placement of a fence as I feel like I should be. So, again, there really is a point after which it's just like it's all gravy, and you don't have to spend so much time trying to figure out the way everything works so that everything looks absolutely perfect. It's not gonna. And the sooner that you give yourself the grace to be able to just finish a project and learn from it and move on, probably the better. In fact, the only person that's probably holding you to an impossibly high standard is most likely you. And how do I know this? Because I've been there. Actually, hold on. These fence lines are wrong. These aren't. Yeah, but there's a reason why. Can I rotate this by 180 degrees? I don't know, but I am going to rotate them now. Okay. Unfortunately, that means I have to rotate each one of these individually, which, to be honest, sucks. But at the same time, guess what? All these fences are put down by real people, IRL. And to be completely honest, their fence laying skills are probably not perfect either. So, why are you holding yourself to an impossible standard, all in the name of trying to make something look better, you know, or potentially impossibly better than what it's supposed to? Give yourself the chance to enjoy the process. And believe me when I say I'm talking even more to myself than I think I am. The airports that I make as a scenery developer, they're great, and they give people a chance to reconnect with the places that they spend time actually learning how to be a pilot in. And at the same time, it's like if they don't see something where they used to see it, it's probably not going to affect them that much. So I shouldn't let it affect me that much either. That's not bad. I was afraid it was going to take a lot more effort to fix this mistake, but that's actually pretty good. I think I'm going to correct the fence posts to the street and then probably save my work and call it a stream. There are several objects that objects. There are several airports that I still have up in the air right now that I'd like to get done soon. That depends on my availability and how I'm working on things at the present moment. But one step at a time, and with my eye toward the future, I will iterate slowly and deliberately and try to get these airports built and released so that folks can enjoy flying in them. And realistically, um, if it's if they're not perfect and if they're ripe with bugs, then that's exactly what they are. And I'm not going to worry about that. So that's better. That actually makes more sense to me. And yeah, this is just a small part of what we do to make scenery look better. And I'm grateful that I actually have the ability to work on this while I'm inside the simulator. Because in the past, you couldn't do this kind of work. The closest I got to it was doing scenery editing with World Editor and X-Plane, and you still have to reload the scenery to see the changes. This is actually live, and you can save it as you go. I don't have a typical schedule. I do have a Discord where I sometimes tell people my schedule or my plans to stream. I was starting to get consistent for a little while, but then what happened was I kind of dropped off and I wasn't as consistent as I wanted to be. And then I was just like, I don't feel like doing this right now. But I'm happy to be doing this at the moment. And I think I'd like to do a little bit more of this either over the weekend or into next week. Let me build the scenery. All right. So, no errors on the build, which is great. Two warnings, which I'm largely going to ignore anyway. And that's it. Eventually, at some point, I'm going to release M25 on FlightSim.to or a different venue for free. There's going to be a payware version, or I think I'd like there to be a payware version, which allows me to add custom objects and put in more details that the people that fly out of this airport in real life would probably appreciate. It depends. It depends on my availability and what it is that I'm shooting for. But if I was doing something like this full time and working on airports like this, I'd probably want to add as much detail as I could, all while creating airports for both freeware and payware consumption. I do also have a YouTube channel under Digi Scenery Studio, which I would at some point like to add some content to, some long form content for things like learning how to create an airport in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I just kind of have to find a small enough project that won't burn me out with teaching. And then I can probably map out the tutorials, really figure out how to get things working and built so that it's fine. I might just do Twitch streams where all I do is run through the process of building an airport and then just dump it straight to YouTube and not worry too much about editing. But I think eventually what I might do is hack or edit those videos up so that it's easy for me to be able to chop parts of it off. I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's an interesting challenge. I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and call it a stream. I will chill, probably grab something to eat. You might see me around the Twitchverse on different channels. If any of my friends are watching this and lurking, thank you so much for lurking. If you didn't say anything tonight and you feel bad, don't feel bad. By lurking, you are demonstrating to Twitch that someone finds my channel worthy of even just listening to on a regular basis. So you're bringing up the channel algorithm as a result of you being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me by lurking, chatting, and certainly any of those folks that donate or share bits or gift subs or subscribe to the channel. Your presence is appreciated and welcome. And I will probably continue working on this airport and continue building it out until such a point in time as when we can say, hey, this airport's ready enough to be released, and then we release it, and then we decide where we're going to go from there. It's going to take me a little bit of time and effort, but this is basically where we are. And what I'd like to do is to get back to a fairly consistent schedule, even if I only do, again, a half an hour to an hour a night. There was a point at which I was basically doing between a half an hour to an hour and a half of just quiet streaming and quiet scenery development. And I just let people kind of, chime in, chat, and say hello. I might get back to that, but one step at a time. Folks, thank you so much for sharing your time with me this afternoon. I really appreciate having you aboard. Really appreciate having you folks be part of the stream. And I hope that you have a great evening, a great rest of your weekend. Today is Valentine's Day. Monday is President's Day. Some of you have both of these days off. Some of you only have one. Some of you have none. If you are working both those days, I hope that your days are very well. And that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and sign off at this point. Like I always like to say at the end of every stream, if you want true peace, you want the Prince of Peace, and that's Jesus Christ. My friends, enjoy your weekend. Have a great night. Rest well. And I hope that you have a great evening and a great rest of your day. Until next time, folks, we'll see ya.